Astro 3.0 just dropped, and there's one particular feature that I couldn't be more hyped for: view transitions. The TLDR is you no longer need a single page app framework like React just to have things animate on your page as you navigate around it. It's easier than ever to have nice animations on your pages, and I'm so hyped about how they handled it. Make sure you watch all the way through both to see how we use view transitions, watch me upgrade a site that's 2 years old using Astro beta stuff to Astro v3, and we even have Fred come by to talk a little bit about what's cool about this new release. Quick disclosure, I am a shareholder in the Astro technology company, the company that makes the Astro framework. I've been advising them for a little bit now, and obviously I'm a good friend of Fred's, so I've been really hyped on this. I have been an Astro user for over 2 years though, well before we had any of that worked out. So everything here is my genuine excited reaction, and you can even see me giving some harsh feedback to Fred if you stick all the way to the end. So can't wait to show you what we learned about Astro 3 here. Always cool to see a blog post with a lot of credit rather than just one person writing the whole thing. Also fun to see that Fred isn't in the blog posters. He's been too busy tweeting. Introducing Astro 3.0. Astro 3 is the first major web framework to support View Transition API. This is a huge deal. We'll go into why in a bit. Fade, slide, morph, and even persist stateful elements across page navigation with ease. Till recently, this is only impossible inside of JavaScript SPAs. But thanks to advancements in the web platform, these features are now available to everyone in Astro 3. Other highlights include image optimization, now stable. Huge deal. Faster rendering performance, can now render 30 to 75% faster. That's really cool to see. SSR enhancements for serverless, which we're big serverless bros here. Could be more hyped for that. The HMR enhancements for JSX. You know that I'm a huge HMR fan. I don't think it's as big of a deal in an Astro-like framework, but it still helps a ton and it's dope to see. And then the optimizations of the build output. Also really cool stuff if you like getting nerdy about details. Let's take a look at how all of these things play out and the benefits. Particularly view transitions. This is the big deal. This is probably what I'm going to focus my video on. View transitions allow you to have a lot of the behaviors we expect from single page apps without having to commit entirely to the single page app way of building. Traditionally, if you have two different pages with elements that are some same, some different, like you have a top nav and a side nav that are the same, but the content inside is different, animating and persisting elements well between those navigations is not a super pleasant experience. The goal of the View Transition API is to allow for elements to change where they are in the browser when the page's content shifts. So if you have an element that's on the left and on the next page is on the right, you can animate it from left to right when the page changes, rather than having to use HTML, CSS, and JS in particular to trigger those animations while faking a navigation. This allows you to have thorough, deep animations and changes to your DOM's like visual hierarchy via just sending different HTML to the page without having to use JavaScript to design those behaviors yourself. Huge deal. With just 2 lines of code, you can add a subtle yet tasteful fade animation to your site. I have an insane idea. Should we just try throwing this on my site? My homepage is an Astro site. This is t3.gg, yes. Astro, we're back on V1. Ready to see how much stuff breaks? I hope that we got some Astro people in chat to help me. Am I using an ancient version of their Tailwind plugin? Yeah, I'm on 0.20 beta 3. Astro plugin Tailwind. Yeah, this is the thing that's broken as shit. Oh, I forgot they have a weird port now. Look at that. I also thought my website was laid out differently. I haven't checked it for a while, but I want to try these view transitions. So let's do it. Add it inside any page's head element. Index. Import. YOLO. Oh, that's really nice. Now I need to add that to everything. Cool. That's so good. I'm hyped. People are confused with the T3 logo on an Astro site. Yeah, I create t3.gg is also still on Astro. We were one of the first people building docs in Astro. This was before we had all the fancy Starlight shit. We definitely need to rethink how this site works now. But yeah, I'm hyped. That looks so good. I'm like going to ship this. I created this site when Astro was still in beta, like well before 1.0. So I'm surprised that it's been this painless for me to do upgrades. Should I be ignoring the Astro directory in my git ignore, or is that supposed to be committed? It is cool to see that like types are being generated for things automatically now. I should ignore it. Git ignore. I guess I should undo the last commit so I can like get that properly removed from my git history. That did not remove the file. God damn it. Y'all suck at git. Cool. That did it. The git was harder than the upgrade. Oh, want to know how OG I am? I have Snowpack in my git ignore for Astro. If anyone doubts that I was an Astro OG, there you go. 24 months ago. 24 months ago. I'm a day 0. Put some respect on this name. Anyways, I love that I have this as like the old OG, like having to install with PNPM yourself still, back before there was an Astro preset. Being an early adopter kind of sucks. I know I say this a lot, but they've been some of the best too. Like, none of this is Astro's fault. It's just the life of the early adopter is the life of pain. Redeploy. Fingers crossed this will work. Also, don't know if this will make it in the video or not, but Astro is now the deploy partner of Vercel. So Astro has now sold out just like me. We're all being paid by Vercel. Wow, 18-second deploy. That's really nice. I see no reason not to ship this, right? If anything's broken, I'm expecting the Astro engineers in chat to file a PR to fix it. This is an open source repo. The view transition name on the blog title. I'm down to do that after. Let's merge this first, and then I'll try that out. Cool. I want to try out that title thing, because that is actually a fun idea. So I have my blog post header element. This is where the title is. Okay, that's the full site transition directives. So I'm trying to think how I want to make these unique. Transition name. I could just do the post title, honestly. Let's try that. And then for each blog post I have, the blog post preview. And in here I have the title. And hopefully that's kind of cool. It makes me want to rethink my whole layout for the site though. That behavior is sick. For those who don't see what's happening, what I did is I gave the title HTML element here and the title HTML element here the same transition element name. So if we want to also have the date animate like that, I can hop into where the date is, formatted date, and give this some unique identifier. So I'll say date plus. I put this date transition here. I'm just going to hand format this so it's readable. So we have the date, front matter, title here. If I go back into here, paste the same thing. It's not post front matter, just post.title. Theoretically, since those have the same key, when I click here, we see the time slides in as well. That's so cool that it's that easy to do that now. I am hyped. There's a lot of places where this will be useful. I'm sure they have plenty more examples in the blog. Go-to examples, the music demo. How about they put the Only Good Killers album in here? Oh, that's so good. I might even have the spicy take that doing this with JavaScript's probably the wrong way. Now the browser can do it this well. And if you can make your transitions this simple and elegant, can't believe this is browser built-ins. I can't wait for other browsers to support this. As someone said in chat, this currently only supports Chrome, but other browsers will implement it. It is a browser web standard. We will see more and more browsers with all of these awesome behaviors in the near future. So that's view transitions. That almost feels like it could be its own video, but we'll get there in a bit. HTMX, I hope you're taking notes because y'all need to be copying this too. Let's take a look at the faster rendering performance. If you know anything about me, you know I don't care that much about how fast a server renders HTML as long as it's within a reasonable speed. Usually the thing slowing down your apps isn't your server going from 5 milliseconds to 15 milliseconds to render HTML. Usually it's one of the things that you're fetching data from taking significantly longer. So with the faster rendering performance, it is cool to see, especially as high as 75%. But I don't think the performance difference here is as big as we think because it's coming from a number that's a small percentage of our time. Achieving this kind of speed was part of a dedicated refactoring effort that was kicked off in Astro 2.10. We removed as much unnecessary code as possible from hot pass in our build pipe and optimized what remained. I hope that you deleted that code forever, not just putting it other places, because deleted code is always a good thing. Necessary generators and async code were two of the biggest culprits. Usually, love this topic. I'm way too familiar, especially now with the stuff that we've been doing at Upload Thing. If you're not already familiar with how Next does this, the Next image component is dope. TLDR for the Next image component is you use the image tag that is provided within Next.js. And rather than just rendering that image with the source pointing to that specific file and URL, it will actually, as a build step and as a server-side rendering load step, have a different URL based on your project. And it will fetch that image on, in this case, the Vercel CDN. And then they'll actually fetch that image on their side, run all the transforms to get it to different resolutions for different clients, to different formats for different browsers, and everything else you need. So that instead of loading whatever giant uncompressed image you're linking to, will actually load an optimized image off of your CDN. It makes every image source really well optimized, even something like what we're doing with Upload Thing. So if you want to use Upload Thing, but have really, really performant, well sized and proper resolution images that don't cost a lot of money to serve, use something like the Next.js image component. This is one of those things that's kind of just been a Next thing for a while. I've been complaining a lot about how only Next.js has this feature because every framework should. It's so useful to have on a framework level the ability to take your image and just render it with the URL there, and everything else takes care of itself from there. I love me a good image component that does all of the CDN type optimization for me because it's a lot of work to do this stuff and to do it right. We're trying to do an upload thing for all of our users, and it's been rough. Now, Astro is one of the few frameworks to support this stuff. So cool to see. Wrong page. There we go. Now, Astro supports these same behaviors where they have their own image component that will do these same background renderings, same CDN distributions, same hook into even Vercel. So if you want that image behavior that Next has, you don't have to use Next if you're using Vercel. You guys were using Squish before? I did not know that, but it makes sense. Sharp is kind of the standard. Support for optimizing remote images. Yep, all dope stuff. I want to see every framework support this in the near future, and it's really cool having Astro pave the way for image optimization for frameworks now that Next is no longer the only one. Great work to the team working on that. We also have SSR enhancements for serverless alongside that official Vercel partnership. Collaboration with Vercel allowed us to make significant enhancements to our SSR story in Astro 3, including per route code splitting. Oh man, this is huge for me. There was definitely an issue I was running into with my bigger apps using Astro, where if I had something like, Puppeteer, which I would use on one endpoint to generate images from another web page. And because I had one endpoint that needed Puppeteer, every single endpoint had all of that cruft bundled in. So every endpoint had a ton of code that wasn't running, even though one of them needed Puppeteer. With per route code splitting, now all of your different endpoints only have the code that they need, and you have much, much better optimized cold start times on the endpoints that don't need as much stuff, even if your project has a lot of dependencies and a lot of code in it. This is annoying to set up correctly, so I'm pumped that they actually got it working and that they're working with Vercel to build and maintain it going forward. Oh, Fred just mentioned in chat for the image stuff that you don't need to use the built-in image stuff on something like Vercel, that the built-in Sharp integration with Astro works as well, so you can host it anywhere. Not quite sure how they're going to optimize the images. They probably just respond with a cached Sharp response with a huge cache time and hope the CDN handles it, but that's super dope. Good to see. Now we have the SSR enhancements for serverless. That's what we were just talking about. I mentioned the code splitting being dope. We also have Edge middlewares, which is really, really nice. I run all of my Astro apps on Edge, but having just the middleware that can run on Edge, so you can send people to different pages depending on different behaviors in their client, and then the thing that you're sending them to is either a static asset or a Lambda that's a bit slower. Being able to do that first decision almost instantaneously with Edge is super powerful, and having that built in without having to give up the Lambda powers, that's really nice. We also have host customization, which is also huge. Astro is one of the first frameworks that had a model for, I think they called it adapters. The goal of adapters was to make it so you can deploy to any of the many different providers without having to make significant code changes. So if we go into my Astro project here, you'll see that I have, do I even have it in here? I don't know where. Is it the Astro config? Do I not even need a Vercel config? I was so sure I had some Vercel something in here. I do not. That's dope. I might have built this at a time before adapters. But we see here that we have Astro.js Node and Astro.js Vercel, so you can host your application on these different providers with a single package. So you no longer have to make a bunch of configuration changes and significantly alter your app because you decided you wanted to deploy it somewhere else for a test. Now it's just one package that you swap in. And generally, this plugin system has been great. They have plugins for everything from Tailwind to Vercel. Makes life a lot easier. These are all available today on Vercel, but any hosting adapter can be upgraded to add support. Really good stuff. HMR enhancements for JSX. React Fast Refresh now works on Astro 3 thanks to a major refactor of all of our internal JSX build support. This journey has been nuts to watch. For those who don't know, Astro was not originally based on JSX. Astro was its own syntax and language, similar to HTML, similar to JSX, but they've over time shifted to just be another JSX framework. They've obviously built a lot of their own syntax on top of it, and they have their own file type, so they can do a lot more. But the core of how that HTML-like syntax is parsed is JSX, which means all of the existing JSX tooling works. And now, with all the additional effort going into said JSX support, behaviors like React's fast refresh work within it. So you can mount a React component in your Astro app, have fast refresh on that React component, make additional changes, and all of the HMR stuff will work and perform as expected. This is really cool. It took Remix 2 years to add this. So having Astro with it when they're not even a React framework is genuinely really, really dope. This is the big deal with fast refresh versus traditional HMR. The state of the UI will not change. So if you have a page like this one where it's been open and it's counting down the seconds and you make a content change or a style change, the state will be persisted. That is so useful for doing things like style changes or restructuring your app while having it in a weird state. For what I was working on at Ping with a video call app where you had to spin up your audio device, spin up your video device, create a video and audio track, authorize WebRTC connection, subscribe to said WebRTC connection, and then start publishing video, and then realizing your CSS was slightly wrong. Having to rerun all of that on every change was just non-viable. So having this type of support built into the framework, we should expect this from all of our web tools. And it's so cool seeing Astro embrace it fully. Good shit. If you ever built a modal or some other multi-step UI, you probably experienced the common frustration of seeing your page. Yep, they get it. They fully get it. I don't have to tell you what they've already told you. And then the optimized build output. This is really cool. Having minified HTML from the start with no effort, a dedicated data Astro CID, so no more Astro class names. These were always interesting. I had feelings about it, but knowing that there's now a separate dedicated ID for it, that makes things much cleaner. And now my classes will be more readable. I'm using Tailwind, so those aren't getting readable anytime soon. But at the very least, when I look at my HTML, all the class names are going to be Tailwind again. So that's nice. I do like when frameworks don't take over those things and let me behave with them how I want. Do whatever you want in fancy data tags. I don't care, but let me have my class name. And CSS inlining. Astro 3 will now automatically inline small chunks of CSS into your HTML. This improves page load performance versus older versions of Astro where a page load might load many smaller CSS files. That's really convenient. And then they say to try Astro. They also link astro.new, which has a bunch of templates for you to quickly open and stack blitz and get started. This is all super cool.
We're just two people hanging out in your top right now. I love this.
How you feeling, Fred?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, I've never had more anxiety watching someone do a live stream, like walking through my ship, but that seemed pretty good. I want to just hear your thoughts. I mean, it was nerve-wracking and fun and kind of wild seeing how quickly you got those view transitions working.
Yeah, I was hyped. I did not think I'd be able to upgrade so easily. I'll be honest, going from beta to V1 was significantly harder than going from my jank V1 app all the way up to V3.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you showed it off, so I don't need to hit this. Everyone gets it. You were like, that's some early shit in there. The Snowpack directory. There's some stuff in there that like horrified me to see.
Yeah, this is what day zero looks like.
I have no idea. I'm very impressed that was a painless experience. That was awesome to see.
Yeah, I almost want to like list all of the like crazy transitions Astro has went through to get to where it's at now. And not just view transitions. There's a lot more here. Like going from Snowpack to Vite, going from whatever you guys were doing with your own custom syntax over to JSX, going from whatever crazy stuff you were doing with Markdown over to MDX. Like you've had so many of these huge shifts away from either self-rolled things or attempts at standards that didn't take off over to the right technology for the job. I'm curious, like what drives these changes and what gives you the confidence that these types of big shifts are worth it?
I mean, if we go way back, I don't even think there was like syntax highlighting when we were first talking about Astro. Like definitely no language tools. Like that was some early stuff. So yeah, you bled so that others wouldn't have to, for sure. I'd say we're trying to find that balance that everyone's trying to find. Like if you wait 3 years between major versions, it's just going to be essentially a new piece of software. If you're doing a break-in change every month, every 3 months, you're probably frustrating your users. So we try and do our best with great docs. I'd say the upgrade guide, I know you've just been blowing through this without docs. I think that's awesome. But if you got stuck on any one of these things, that upgrade guide would have been able to save your butt. And yeah, everything else is just kind of, I don't know, just trying to feel it out. It's more art than science, I'd say.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's so much gut feel when making these types of decisions, like when or if you make these types of changes. Even like a weird one we have now is with upload thing, there's a ton of interest from the community in supporting all sorts of different things, but we want to make sure we don't hurt our ability to iterate on the core of upload thing with that. So at what point does it make sense to make a separate community repo for these other packages and these other, in our case, I guess, our equivalent of adapters for things like Nuxt, things like Astro, hopefully in the near future? These types of decisions don't come down to some science and calculated act. It's so much gut feel that has to go into these decisions.
I don't know if you are following this with like Create T3 app or upload thing. A lot of these things that are now like we're announcing them as built-in all started as plugins or integrations. Like that's a pattern that I love because like we have an RFC process. It generally rewards like thinking through things first, and it's really hard to get it right the first time. So we basically say, build it in integration if you can, no RFC, no friction. Like just go build it. Like you'll figure it out, and like all the early adopters will be able to try it out over there without affecting the core experience. That's a pattern that I love. And then eventually they stabilize. You can kind of do an RFC, make sure everyone's happy with it. All avenues have been explored, and then you ship it.
Absolutely agree. I'm getting some reports in chat that are interesting, so I want to try something with you here on the hot seat quick. We're going to go to Safari.
Oh, God. Oh, no, not Safari.
GG.
No.
Apparently, yeah, view transitions break links on Safari right now.
What?
So I have to refresh every time I click a link. So I'm clicking this post. I guess that one worked. But on my homepage, which has a view transition on, when I click this link, nothing happens. And then I have to refresh for it to trigger.
That's very weird. We have absolutely tested. I have no idea what that could be. You put in view transitions.
Sorry to make life harder.
No, hey, listen, I knew it. That's anytime things are going too well, it's not like, oh my God, this is going well. It's like, oh, we just haven't found the thing that's going to break yet. Here we are. I have no idea what that could be, but I know we've tested the hell out of this.
I have a feeling, and that thing is probably Safari.
It's a feature. Safari's actually
it breaks on Firefox
good
too,
in our testing. Firefox is the one that has been, Firefox has been tricky. It's I believe still supposed to work on Firefox. So basically what we do is we ship a JavaScript, like essentially a 3 kilobyte router, which is basically what the polyfill is. So it's not just Chrome. It's meant to be on every browser. And we're doing that by essentially, hidden truth of this is like, it's essentially a SPA router, but like so small and still talking to the server for HTML.
So what you're saying is you hit a SPA inside of our MPA.
Rich Harris was right. MPAs are dead. SPAs are the future. There you go.
Love it. Yeah, I definitely, it's so cool seeing this balance being found. I feel like things like Astro, HTMX, Svelte, they're all acknowledging that a lot of the behaviors and experience of a single page app are worth it and necessary for a lot of modern browsing experiences. But the tooling around MPAs and the overall performance possible with MPAs is so great. Is there an in-between? And it's so cool seeing many people finding and embracing that right now.
Yeah, there's this blog post that's just like swimming around in my head, which is like everyone's trying to solve the performance problem of SPAs, like transitional apps, whatever Kent C. Dodds thing is, PEMSPA.
I'm not keeping track of these anymore.
RSC, Astro, like everyone's trying to solve the performance problem, but like keep the like power of it and the developer experience of it. I think that's where we find ourselves right now. So this is one exploration of that. It's not like really, I think, surprised me that RSC is like very similar now to transitional apps. Like everyone's just trying different stabs at this because there's so much power. And it's just this like, if we can solve these two performance things, we'll be golden.
Absolutely. And also Firefox. Honestly, if we can just stop using Firefox, that'd be the easiest thing. It seems like you're dealing with
Firefox, man. That's so hard to say, but yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah, one of my worst like rated videos in terms of like to dislike ratio was my Chrome's actually good for the web video, where I talk about all this stuff. Things like view transitions are only possible because the Chrome team is trying really hard to keep pushing the standards forward so we can do better things with the web. Chrome's arguably the only browser actually improving web standards right now when the rest are desperately trying to catch up. Does it suck there's only one engine that does things properly? Yes, but it sucks harder when somebody tries to join a ping video call at 31 FPS or higher and crashes because one person's using Firefox and they memory leak anything over 30 FPS 720p in a WebRTC call. And it's just like, there's so many of these issues and it sucks. And I wish these other vendors would catch up. But It feels like getting Firefox to work is so much cost to every developer.
Yeah, I totally agree that like some progress, even if it's in like Google's direction, is better than no progress. But like, yeah, the ideal thing is it's some other business, open source. There's foundations for it. Like there should be resources here. Like how many resources does the OpenTF fork have now? Send one of those engineers, a couple of them, send them over to Firefox. Is that how software development works? I don't know.
Just give free engineers out to whoever needs them in order to make sure that the standards keep getting better.
That's not how it works. But like, I feel like we're all just like wishing that there was something better. Yeah, that Firefox could do more here because I do still see the need for them. But yeah, I appreciate that Google's pushing this. It's definitely made Astro, and I think a lot of the websites built with Astro are going to be a lot better for it.
Yeah, I see Ryan in chat saying that there's so much innovation going on right now because of platform standards and features being iterated on and implemented, like routing in particular. The addition of push state and history is a huge part of why everything we're doing right now is possible.
Yeah, who was I just chatting about? Like the idea that like I think there's this constant like frameworks can never go too far ahead of platforms because then you're just like taking on so much work. But like you kind of push a little bit further than the browser can. You learn something that gets them back to the platform. It improves in a way that supports multiple frameworks, and now everyone's able to innovate again. I think it's like this weird kind of like shuffling motion, but I think that's how I've seen the web evolving now on this side of it on Astro.
Yeah, it's a constant back and forth and shuffle forward where you take a lot of steps back, even if they're very small, and people get angry about it as you do it. But that back and forth to slowly move us forward is how we got where we are and how we're going to keep making progress.
Yeah, 100%.
So this is, which would you be more willing to give up? Syntax, highlight, or prettier? Which would be easier to give up? This is when I think a lot about, like, when I think about the T3 stack, I sometimes get asked, what would be hardest for you to give up?
Wow, community betrays Theo in 4K.
Oh, this happens almost every stream. People are more willing to give up prettier than syntax highlighting. Damn. The more you know.
I mean, even just for like working on a team and not being like, hey, Nit, could you turn these double quotes into... I guess linting solves that, but then that's just as bad. Now you have that PR blocking because you're single quotes. Oh, don't get me getting all worked up.
Yep. Very accurate.
This is truly cringe. I love your chat. Your chat's so funny.
You get used to them over the years. Yeah, I'm personally unable to work without auto formatting. I see somebody mention Go format. Honestly, Go format's one of the best parts of Go, and I think every language should have done that. Like, any language that doesn't have formatting built in, I kind of judge now.
We need Biome to come save us the Rome fork.
Oh, Biome.
I mean, I just want to know more about what happened. It just seems so crazy. Like, if you read the blog post, it's just kind of filled with like, we tried to get the domain, we tried to get this thing, and like no response. Like, it just sounds like, I don't know what happened, but it just sounds like it didn't just like, oh, it died. Like, you know that meme of like when your startup dies, you post about your incredible journey.
Yep.
Like, it wasn't that. It was just silent. It was just totally silent. So I have no idea what happened. But
yeah,
Emma is awesome. Emma is an Astro. So for those of you who don't know, Emma, just call him Emma on the team. Astro contributor, core maintainer. He's also the person who's helping. He used to work at Realm and is like one of the people keeping it alive and kind of breathing fresh air into this fork. He's a steward, like the lead of the new fork. So he's awesome. I think it's going to be in good hands, knowing having been able to work with him personally.
That's really good to hear. It's I've been asked about Roam possibly more than any other tool, maybe other than Flutter. And I haven't really known what to say because it's been pretty apparent to me that Roam is dead, but not as apparent to others, it seemed. And now we finally have proof that it's dead that I can point at. So I feel better. It's nice to see that there is a path forward, and I'm really excited to learn more about this new person who's taken over from here. I feel like I need to record the end of Roam video now.
Oh, the title and the thumbnail just create themselves.
How Rome fell.
You got to do it now. Yeah, the only things that I, from you reading the blog post, there's a couple of things that are just going to ruin your day. The first one is the entire edge, the idea of like shipping your Astro site to the edge on Vercel. We are now not maintaining that in the official Vercel adapter. You can still build it. Like, these things don't change that often. Someone can just go and publish the like unofficial Vercel edge adapter. But as of right now, by us promoting it, we got so many people being like, this worked in dev, but it didn't work in prod. Like, no dev edge prod, like we were promoting this dev workflow that if you know what you're doing is okay, but if you don't, it's just full of rough edges. So the move is now, it's not official. You can still do it. We hope that someone, maybe even someone from the Create T3 app community, comes and just takes the code that we already wrote, republishes it, and now it can live on.
Ow, I'm sad. I've been using Astro as my go-to like benchmarking tool for Vercel's edge for a while. So
it should still work. Like, the whole thing is that like our name behind something makes it feel much more stable. Like, it basically gets tied back to like Astro itself. There's even a little bit of that still with a community adapter. Like, there's a bug in Astro, it's on us. But in this way, it's like we just couldn't maintain every bug that was coming in on a platform that is so different from prod. Again, if you know what you're doing, fantastic. But until we have some way to like take the Vercel edge runtime and like do that in dev, it was just not sustainable for us.
As a dedicated Next.js edge user, I take a lot of offense to this. We expect our things to be broken most of the time until suddenly you find the right alignment of package versions and like weird import methods that suddenly lets it compile on Edge, both locally and in production. There's also like, I'm pretty sure that Next's dev environment now runs something much more similar to the Edge deployment environment when you're running locally. So you get something a little bit closer when you're doing that, but it
feels like we're so close to these runtimes all converging on something that's stable, and we're just like a little too far away. So maybe we can bring it back one day, but But yeah, as of right now, you can still, your code's going to be just fine. You're just going to have to, find that community adapter. They don't change very often. We don't expect this to be hugely disruptive to people, but
Okay.
yeah, definitely
So
annoying.
I don't have to move to Hano.js yet, but I should at least be considering it.
Exactly.
Perfect. What else are you going to ruin my day with in here?
The HMR announcement is not as drastic about the Astro component. We should actually clarify this because it's fast refresh for your React components, for your Preact components. This isn't really about the Astro component. We are still doing a lot of stuff to make that more stable. We were just chatting with someone who has like the style string versus object, right? String is like HTML, object is React. We're improving that story for React developers so it feels more familiar, but this is mainly about the React support and the Preact support. And this idea of like, if I want to build a spa in Astro, that's actually fine. Didn't want you to oversell it. I take that responsibility.
I think I sold it fairly. Like I did focus on the React side and mostly use it as an opportunity to poke fun at other frameworks that took way too long to support fast refresh. It is really cool to see. And like the place where it matters, as you even say here, it's things like modals and other multi-step UI. This part you're not doing in Astro. If you are doing this in Astro, I don't even know if I want to see the code. All HTML-based modals.
I feel like you'll appreciate that just because we've been talking about Snowpack. If you look at that demo, that is actually a Snowpack demo. I was too lazy to re-record. You can see the config file in there.
Why? It's just a demo of HMR, like what it is. It's not even from the new.
I was like, I'm writing this whole blog post and everything. Like, I can't be bothered.
I thought you didn't write the blog post.
I helped out. You're
not even listed.
I
Ghostwriter.
I prodded.
Ghostwriter. We'll take it. Cool. Anything else that I oversold in here?
No, that was it. I mean, everything else, yeah. I feel like the demo that you did at the top just kind of spoke volumes to exactly like that was the best version of what we're going for here. Super simple, like 2 lines of code, and then like boom, visual. Like it's just like such a lightweight way to describe what you want if you want that sort of transition across pages.
I got 2 more questions, but I think we're pretty much covered for all that. I'll let chat obviously come up with your own things too if you have anything you want me to ask.
Can I make a request? This can totally come after the questions. Can you roast the homepage? New kind of quiet new homepage just dropped. I'm really curious what you think because it's a fairly new message for us. Go crazy, go wild. No.
First thought, there's something missing here. I'm pretty sure it's an embedded tweet with my name on it. It was in the first 2 versions of the site, but it's missing from this one, so I would fix that.
Yeah, just replace the whole thing. We need like /Theo or something, just a Easter egg.
I'm thinking through like how to like describe how I feel about this intro. It doesn't necessarily make it clear what's different about Astro. I do like that like scale is coming up, and like for me the thing that scales with Astro is the complexity. The complexity of my solution to a problem scales very well depending on what my problem is. If I just need a static page, I don't need all this crazy stuff. I just write static HTML. If I need more dynamic stuff, I can write more dynamic behaviors. If I need an SPA, I can mount a React component and build all of that in. But the thing that scales is what's missing. And what I would have included somewhere in here is the word complexity of like you don't need the complexity that you're currently dealing with.
Yeah. The idea that it's complexity that scales, that's such a great way to phrase it. I don't know if I'd fully connect that myself, but yeah, you're right. That's exactly what we're talking about here when we say scale.
And this is why I'm an advisor. For those who don't know, I was going to disclose this in the intro when I recorded it later. I do officially have Astro stock, so I am not an unbiased party here.
Astro Technology Company, the company that supports the development of Astro. No one owns stock in an open source project.
That's fair.
Also, what screen are you on? That Trivago logo just floating below the line. This is becoming live design.
720p scaled for my MacBook. And I also might be Zoom. No, that was at 100% Zoom 720p. So yeah.
That floating little Trivago guy hanging out.
I can probably command minus it to fix that. But yeah, I always test on small screens because I usually record on small screens. And for a long time, my main work machine was the M1 MacBook Air with I actually turned up the base scaling slightly so I could have a really bad experience and know what pages do and don't work. One other thing, and this is just like a trick I learned a while back, it's really good to have something peeking from the bottom so you have a reason to scroll. Because by default here, I don't even know that I can scroll and that there's more content on the page.
Right.
So something to indicate that could be really valuable.
It's so hard. Like everyone's on a different screen, but like something to indicate it. Oh, I'm having flashbacks to the like random carrot just kind of floating at the bottom back when we build those like monstrosities.
Yeah, honestly, not the worst thing.
I actually watched your video and I thought that was, it's funny. Like we've never said like 0.js is the goal. It's always like a good starting point, and then add JS when you want it. But I went back on the homepage after and kind of just browsed through. I was like, oh yeah, it does seem like we're advocating like Astro 0 JS. Like that was never intentional. So we kind of gave this a little bit of a refresh as well.
I think I would include the benefit more here, because this is super buzzwordy. Supercharge your development with automatic JS to HTML streaming and a beloved developer experience. Like this says nothing. This says this sentence does not communicate anything at all. I would say something like ship just as much or as little JavaScript as you need.
Yeah, it's missing blazing fast, and the
this,
rest of
I
this
might
I'm
even
sure you've seen.
move a little higher somehow, just like having examples rather than them all being pushed in to this one place. What could be really cool is if each point had an example alongside it.
Oh, cool.
So like great for static, Firebase blog, great for marketing with islands, next page, and like highlighting one of the benefits alongside one of the like case studies and people who's found success with it.
Yeah. That's a great point. We almost killed this. Like the trouble that this causes versus the benefit is so like we've been on Hacker News for this. We basically made every framework author mad at us. Like kind of understandably so, but yeah, still kept it.
I'm gonna do the title test, which is if you read all of the titles, you should have a rough idea of what's going on without reading anything else. So we have the web framework scales with you, one front-end architecture with endless possibilities, build it with Astro and full speed, and then 0 to website and whoa. I have no idea what Astro is from that at all.
I love that. I've never seen that. That's a great test.
Yeah. It should, ideally, your titles will tell a story of some type that guides you to the reason you would use that thing. Like, I think that Vercel did a really good job with this, if I recall, even though they're redoing their homepage
Wilson,
right now.
Wow. Just, I don't know, you didn't phrase it totally right.
Oh.
0 to website and wow.
Forgot to put wow.
Wow.
Build when inspiration strikes, iterate with your team, delight every visitor.
I don't know if I'd understand that was a hosting company though. There's probably like a subtitle somewhere.
The first of develop preview ship is the core title to start it. Diving into each of those, giving develop its own story of the complete toolkit for the web, easy integration with your background, end-to-end testing on localhost. Then the iterate with your team, push to deploy, automatic previews for every branch, collaborative reviews on UI, delight every visitor, global edge network, first-party monitoring observability, like all the details.
Yeah, they get really explicit in the subtitle, kind of like supporting evidence. I like that.
Yes, I think this is pretty good. I wouldn't even say it's one of the best, but it's pretty good. The next site, if I recall.
Yeah, I was going to say, aren't they? Oh, sorry, I think you meant the next. I think they're redesigning. Didn't I see someone tweeting about that?
They're redesigning the Vercel site. Guillermo tweeted about it. I may or may not have seen it, and it is different.
Ooh.
And this is the next one, which I love.
It's just turbo. It's turbo repo.
I guess this one doesn't really have like a flow to sell it to you. It's more just detail-y, which is interesting.
Yeah,
React framework for the web.
That's so funny. I was definitely looking at this for inspiration early on for like, well, what do we want to say? And it's like something about Next.js and where they are. It's like, it's Next.js. Like, I don't know, Google it. Like, it almost like transcends. That was the best guess I could get at why they didn't describe what it is. It's like, that's kind of what you get when you're like the Kleenex, like you're the number one framework in the JS space, especially in the React space. You're the React framework.
Yeah. That absolutely makes sense. Trying to think of other good examples to reference of like pages that wowed me. This is very, very different and is a self plug, but I really like the homepage on the upload thing docs. The goal of this was to answer core questions and tell people what upload thing is with a very readable. So what is upload thing? Really quick, what we are, and then the 3 things we're trying to do different. File hosting, server-side authorization, and client experience. We manage file hosts, like S3, but simpler. Authorize users on your server. Oh, look, we have a weird line break too. And then, or give clients a great experience. The goal here was to show like the core pieces that are the things you need to know about us and why you would use us, and then give you the detail right under the fold if you need it. But the story I wanted to drive is we do the file hosting, you do the authorization, the user has a good time.
Yeah.
And that's the 1, 2, 3 I really wanted to drive home.
Because what's your homepage right now? It's basically like a splash, right?
Ours, yeah, it's nothing.
No, that's good. Like I think you should you should point people to the thing that like matter. I like that you have something there, but I like that you're also like, let's push people immediately to the thing that does explain, that does convert.
Absolutely. So definitely link that here more aggressively.
There was it's one of those things I saw once and then totally lost it. It was I want to say a SaaS product redesigned their homepage and got rid of basically everything below the hero, like effectively, and conversion rate didn't change. It didn't go down, but it didn't go up. It was like people just like wanted to see the hero, and then I think it pushed you to like some other part of the site. You can
honestly
kind of choose
that entirely checks out for me. I have put way too much time into homepages that did almost nothing, and like the conversion we've had on upload thing has been insane. We're at like 600 or so new users a day right now. It's insane.
There's probably people screaming at me watching this, like, what are you talking about? But like, there's gotta be, if there is any truth here, it's that like you're already designing the hero to be the most compelling part, and then like that call to action is where you should go. So like send them somewhere where they can go and like dig deeper versus like trying to, I don't know.
Yeah.
Even as I said out loud, I don't know if that's right. It's just something I read.
I'm with you on that. I would love to have somebody more designery who wants to take us on that point in the future. If there's anybody in chat who just so deeply disagrees they want to send me a long DM, do it. I want to talk about these things more. Yeah, those are my thoughts on the homepage. I don't think it tells a cohesive enough story.
I mean, did you see our old site? It was a lot more vague. Like we're trying to move towards much more concrete, and like full speed, that's from the old. Yeah, I think that like we made some progress here. There's still more to do.
What are the core points that make our thing different and valuable? How can you break down the Astro pitch to a 3-point story? And how can you make the website flow around driving those points home?
Yeah, right on.
You asked for critical feedback. I hope this is helpful.
Oh my God, no, this is incredibly. The idea that like it's complex, I'm like embarrassed to say like that totally clicked in my head. Like, oh right, that's what we're saying scales. I don't even know if I'd challenge myself. I'm like, well, what does it scale? Like, yeah, it's fast and all these things, but it's that complexity of like this will work no matter what you're trying to build with it. It'll scale to that level of complexity, whether that's a full spa or just like a classic static HTML site.
Not to just plug React in the middle of the Astro stream, but it's one of the things I love so much about the server component model. It's not that like our websites are inherently way faster or any of that. It's very, very specific. The win I get that I love so much is that the amount of complexity for a given feature or change tends to be much smaller. There are more pieces overall. Like the amount of parts in React has gone up a significant amount, but the amount of parts you need to solve a problem hasn't necessarily gone up. And the complexity of the parts you use to solve that problem has gone down a ton. So if you just measure like how many things did I have to touch and how complex were those things to understand when doing the average change, that has gone down a ton. And the amount of complexity that you have in your application, in your code, goes up as the complexity of what you're doing does now, rather than you're complex because you installed 15 packages for your blog.
Yeah, right. Your hello world is now like a megabyte of who knows what because you use Create React app.
Absolutely. Let's do our last.
I think I did that once. I think I actually checked the size of my node modules folder in a Create React, like a blank Create React app. And I think it was like 250 megs of just JavaScript powering like, hello. I'm like black on white text.
Create Next app's pretty bad now, but that's because they're shipping binaries as well, which doesn't help a lot. Even Vite shipping the ES build binary now hurts a lot of people with the performance there. But if you're raw JS, that's even more than like 100 megs, you're in trouble.
That's one more thing that's I'll shout out is the move to Squoosh. No, sorry, from Squoosh to Sharp. Squoosh is really cool. It's basically like WASM Sharp built by the Chrome team, I want to say, but they've stopped maintaining at least that library, maybe even the entire project. Next still uses it, so there's still like I think some hope there. But what everyone is excited about is Sharp is moving to a WASM. Is that a binary, a WASM build? Sharp as WASM, so that there's not that whole like install script that you need to run. It'll just be WASM, runs locally. That's like the dream. So I know they're working on that. I don't know the current status, but like this kind of sets us up well for like once that's ready, drop it in, one less of those binaries to install as a postscript.
That is really hype. I didn't know that Sharp had gone that hard on WASM, and that's very, very exciting. I didn't expect the performance to be as good as it is for that too, which is dope. So
yeah, I don't know what the current status is, but like, yeah, it's just such a, it's exactly what you don't want to have to like build for every system. And I think it used to be, I feel like I remember like actual like binaries being built, like node executable C bindings going on in that library. I think it's gotten a lot better, but it's still not, you can't beat WASM.
It's surprising to me that WASM is performing as well as it is for this, but also not like that's the whole point. But yeah, excited for Sharp to continue taking over everything it can. 2 more quick questions. The first is around that SPA hidden inside of an Astro app. I really like the syntax, and I am hyped on the quality of the view transitions, so much so that I want them in other things. What would it look like for me to use that SPA JavaScript file in my next app?
What do you mean in your next app?
I mean, using Astro to handle transitions on some pages.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let's break that down. You got your next app, like, app.uploadthing.com, and you got your homepage, it's Astro. It's tough because Astro and Next both want to own the full experience. So you can isolate and kind of slice up, but at the end of the day, that's going to be a pretty hard throwing you over the wall to Next.js.
That makes sense.
I think even like, we've talked about this before, I know, and it's like, there's got to be some story of bringing them together. And I feel like where we're going now, where we're focused more on, is more bringing what Next.js does for you into Astro. So less about using Astro and Next together, and much more about like, well, what does Next do? It's ultimately getting you an API, a client side, SPA, and with performance built in as much as possible. And like, we think we can actually take React and offer those things in Astro without having to reach for the complexity of making Astro and Next two very big tools working alongside each other. That being said, you can definitely do, like, I think you've done that. You've worked with that architecture of like Astro in the front, Next.js in the back? Like,
I've done a bit of chaotic stuff with this, of rewrites to send people to the right like HTML page for the root, and then different pages in other cases. It gets a little annoying around like the bundling of things like your CSS file in the public directory, because everything assumes like a clean root to call, and that's not always the case. I definitely think a happier story of integrating, like Webflow does good enough here, where a lot of people have Webflow as their homepage and then everything else is taken over by something like Next. I feel like that's worth micro-targeting, so that, because so many developers hate dealing with the Webflow part of their stack. And if you can help developers integrate something into their existing Next app that is better than Webflow, I still feel like that's a really strong angle.
If we could collaborate with Next.js on a standard idea of what a view transition is, there could be some way to like transition you over there, because like we're the starting page and I have no idea if this will work, but if they can own like the receiving of that, like the server HTML they send back, I don't know, there's something there for sure.
Transition.
It would need like a deeper level of collaboration between us and them, which, I mean, now that they're Vercel's our hosting partner, so we have that relationship.
Love it. I'm thinking like robots.txt, but for view transitions.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's specifically that it's not even like what pages, it's like, what does a handoff look like? Like our transition library has to work with it. Although I'm thinking now in like the polyfill world, and eventually this might just all work in the browser spec without JavaScript. So I don't know, it's still early days.
Yeah, apparently for view transitions to work, they all have to come from the same domain right now. So that's a fun challenge. Even subdomains won't work. Ugh.
All right, get those Vercel rewrites out, get those Netlify redirects.
Imagine like entirely different domain view transitions. Like you could click, have an embed for YouTube playing on your page, and then click the title, and the video continues playing, expanded on YouTube. Like there is an incredible future.
Oh, Theo, just let us have our launch day. Bring these crazy ideas tomorrow.
That's fine. Enjoy your launch. It's been good. And just to make it even better with my final question, what's your favorite feature in HTMX?
Ooh, I was just learning. So I think you saw I was on Primogen's stream yesterday, and that was basically us trying to build an HTMX integration for Astro. You don't really need it, but there's a couple of things that it unlocks. It was my first time actually working with it. As much as I've seen the memes on Twitter, I liked it a lot. It was really good at handling like Astro not being built for that use case, shipping down basically full pages of HTML instead of like the partials that it wanted. I was surprised by how stable it was. I think it's been around for like a while, right?
Yeah,
it's not new. It's just
not
like
new at all.
Newly memed.
Yes, their Twitter account has taken the drizzle angle of shitposting. I definitely think the next generation of dev tools are going to be the ones that have the best shitpost quality on Twitter. We have Drizzle, we have Astro, definitely is keeping up pretty hard there. We have HTMX killing it with the shitposts, but shitpost frameworks are the future.
I feel like Drizzle came in like, I think we can do this, and like maybe Supabase like this early class, and then HTMX just like Kool-Aid man through the wall was just like, nope. Every 5 minutes a new meme. Like they are just so on top of their shit. It's impressive. It's very cool to see.
I feel like Drizzle was the Kool-Aid man moment for me. Like that was the one that really ramped it up. Like you've seen their testimonials page, right?
Yeah, true.
Like they went so hard with all of that.
Yeah. It's the same strategy, but I feel like HTMX is like turned up to 11. Maybe it's just what I see versus the other. Like,
I feel like the jump to Drizzle was going from like 2 out of 10 shitposty to like 7 out of 10. And yes, HTMX is at an 11, but 7 to 11 is a smaller jump than 2 to 7.
Yeah. I feel like that's like the whole thing that we're all still. It's so wild that we're still figuring this out. But like, people are on Twitter to have fun. Like I think they're want to have fun first, and if they can learn something, that's great. But they're not on Twitter to learn. I don't want to make sweeping generalizations, but I think the majority of people are here to have fun, and learning is second. And I feel like it's so weird that we're just figuring that out now as like an industry, as like people. Like it's truly taken this year for me to really get like that's the first goal is like people are here, they're giving you the time, and they want to be entertained, they want to have a good time. It doesn't have to be all jokes and all memes, it can just be like interesting things, but like whatever that looks like, finding the fun in it first and foremost.
Absolutely agree. So your favorite HTMX feature is the shitpost in the Twitter account?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, that's what they're doing better than anyone else right now, including Astro by far. So yeah, credit where it's
true innovators. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Really
Oh my God,
appreciate
it's
it.
been so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you guys again. And a huge shout out to Fred for coming on and jumping right in the fire to answer all my hard questions and see what is and isn't working. We appreciate all of y'all for watching this relatively long video. If you want to learn a bit more about Astro, I'll pin a video in the corner here from the last time I played with all this stuff. Huge shout out to my editor FaZe for cleaning up into something useful. Hope y'all appreciate it. Thank you guys as always. Peace, nerds.